My name is Harold Bennett. I'm 73 years old, a retired civil engineer, and for most of my life, I played by the rules. I worked hard, paid off my mortgage early, drove practical cars, and raised my only son, Jeremy, to understand the value of a dollar. Or at least I thought I did. I wasn't born rich. I grew up in a two-bedroom house in a rough part of Ohio, where dinner was sometimes just toast and gravy. My father worked at a steel plant until the day his heart gave out. My mother did people's laundry in our neighborhood to put food on the table. That kind of upbringing teaches you something about money, about pride, about sacrifice. So when I finally had the means, after decades of frugal living, smart investments, and a modest inheritance from my uncle, I decided I'd start living a little. Nothing wild. I wasn't buying yachts or private jets. Just a few things that made life easier. A remodeled kitchen, a high-end recliner, and yes, I started going on cruises. Not to escape, but to see the world I never got to while working 9 to 5, year after year. And that's when the trouble started. Jeremy, my son, didn't like the change. He came over one day, took one look at the new espresso machine in my kitchen, and gave me that look he used to give when he was 16 and thought he knew everything. Then he said it. 4 words I'll never forget. Dad, stop wasting money. I laughed at first. I thought he was joking. I mean, for years, all he did was tell me I needed to enjoy life and not be so uptight. Now that I was finally doing it, he was mad. He continued, "You're acting like a teenager. You're going on cruises, upgrading everything in the house, giving money to strangers. That's not how a man your age should act." I asked him, "What do you mean, strangers?" Apparently, he was talking about a local veterans shelter I'd donated to, and a scholarship fund I started at the community college. He didn't see that as generosity. He saw it as money he wouldn't inherit. That stung more than anything. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about concern. It was about his expectation that I'd sit on my money until I died, and he'd just scoop it all up like a prize at the end of a game show. It was that day I realized something. Jeremy didn't see me as a person anymore. He saw me as a bank account. A vault. And when that vault started opening for things he didn't approve of, he panicked. Over the next few weeks, he became distant. Shorter phone calls. Missed dinners. Sarcastic remarks when we did speak. At one point he even joked, "Don't spend it all before you die, Dad." It was a joke, but it wasn't really. I started to question things. Had I failed him somehow? Did I spoil him? Or maybe, had I waited too long to teach him that money isn't owed to anyone? Not even your own child? I was hurt, but I wasn't going to be bullied by my own flesh and blood. I'd spent my whole life working so that someday I could finally do what I wanted. Now that I had the chance, my own son was trying to take that away. So I made a decision. One that would change everything. And it all started with a quiet visit to my lawyer's office. The day I walked into my attorney's office, it wasn't with rage. It was with clarity. I wasn't trying to get revenge on my son. I wasn't angry. I was disappointed. Deeply. But more than anything, I felt free. For the first time in a long time, I realized I didn't owe anyone anything. Especially not someone who saw me as little more than a wallet on legs. "Mr. Bennett," my lawyer, Cynthia, said with a raised eyebrow as I sat across from her. "You sure you want to do this?" "Yes," I said. "Take Jeremy out of the will. All of it. Every last cent." She leaned back in her chair, hands folded. "You're leaving behind a $3 million estate. Are you sure you want to cut your only son out entirely?" I didn't even flinch. "He's made it clear I'm wasting my money by spending it on myself or giving to anyone but him. So I'll make it easy for him. He won't have to worry about it anymore." And that's exactly what we did. We rewrote the will that day. Every asset, every account, every property was reassigned. I divided the majority of my wealth between 3 causes that mattered most to me. $1 million to the local veterans organization that runs homeless shelters and job training for retired servicemen. $1 million to the community college scholarship fund I'd started, so kids from working-class homes like mine could get an education without drowning in debt. And the rest? I set up a charitable trust in my late wife's name. She was the kindest person I've ever known, and it felt right to honor her with something lasting. Of course, I didn't tell Jeremy about any of this. Not yet. In the following weeks, I lived like normal. I still took my morning walks, still went to the senior center for bingo and book club. But inside I felt lighter. Like I'd finally let go of the burden of trying to be the father he wanted me to be. And finally became the father I was meant to be. But Jeremy? He started to notice. He came by one day and saw I'd donated one of my classic cars to a veterans fundraiser. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, clearly upset. "Because I knew you'd try to stop me," I said. He scoffed. "You don't think I have a say in any of this? I'm your son." That's when I realized the truth. He didn't love me. Not really. He loved the idea of me. The old man who worked hard, saved every penny, and would one day leave behind a golden goose for him to pluck. But that goose had flown the coop. What Jeremy didn't understand was that money isn't a measure of love. I had given him everything he needed growing up. Security, education, even a down payment on his first home. But now, as a grown man in his 40s, he felt entitled to the rest of my life's work. Simply because of our bloodline. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I swallowed it. And the hardest part? I knew this decision would change our relationship. Maybe forever. But I also knew I couldn't let guilt write my will. My conscience had to write it. And with that, I mailed a sealed copy of the new will to Jeremy. No letter. No explanation. Just the facts. What happened next was predictable. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was him. "Dad, what the hell is this?" "It's my will," I said calmly. "You're leaving me nothing?" "Nothing? Are you serious right now?" "I'm very serious," I said. "I spent a lifetime building something meaningful. You made it clear you think I've been wasting it. So I decided not to waste any more of it on someone who doesn't respect me." "You're cutting off your own son?" "I'm protecting my legacy," I replied. He hung up on me. That was the last I heard from him for a while. But I wasn't shaken. I was at peace. My house was still warm. My coffee still tasted good. And my heart. It was a little bruised, but finally free. It was early fall. The leaves had just started to turn gold and red. And I was enjoying my morning coffee on the porch. One of those quiet mornings where the only sound was birds and the occasional car in the distance. That's when I heard tires crunching on my gravel driveway. I looked up, and there he was, Jeremy. He stepped out of his car, not the shiny black SUV he used to drive, but a dented old sedan with a broken headlight. He looked different. Thinner. Worn down. The kind of tired that goes deeper than just sleep. He didn't even knock. Just walked up the steps and stood there like he was still angry, but didn't have the strength to show it. "I need to talk," he muttered. I motioned to the empty chair beside me. Coffee still warm. He sat down but didn't touch the mug I poured for him. Instead, he got straight to the point. "I lost everything, Dad." I didn't say anything. I just listened. He told me how his marketing business collapsed after a few bad contracts. Apparently, he'd taken some big risks, investments in crypto, a failed partnership with a startup, even some questionable real estate deals. None of it worked out. Now his savings were gone, his credit cards were maxed out, and even his house was in pre-foreclosure. "I thought I'd have time," he said. "I thought when the money came, when you passed, it'd buy me time to fix things." I nearly choked on my coffee. "That's what you were waiting for?" I asked. "My death." His face flushed. "I didn't mean it like that. But that's what it was. That's what this has been about the whole time, hasn't it?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. That's when I realized he hadn't come here just to share his problems. He'd come for a rescue. "I just need enough to keep my house," he said finally. "A small loan. I'll pay you back." "Jeremy," I interrupted. "We both know that's not true." He looked down at his hands, ashamed. Then came the words I never expected to hear from my son. "You were right, Dad. About everything. I was greedy. I thought I had time. I thought I was smarter than I was. And I treated you like a lottery ticket, not a person." There was a long pause. A heavy one. I could feel the apology in his voice, but I also knew it wasn't coming from the heart. It was coming from desperation. Regret wrapped in survival instinct. "I'm sorry," he said. "Truly. But I need help." And I believed part of him meant that. I truly did. But the truth? I wasn't ready to reward him for years of selfishness, just because life had finally caught up to him. You're not getting the estate, Jeremy, I said gently. That decision is final. He looked like he'd been slapped. I know, he said. I figured. But could you at least help me keep the house? Just enough to not lose it. I leaned back in my chair and looked at him. Not as my son, but as a man. A man who needed to learn what it felt like to stand on his own, without safety nets. You're 42, Jeremy. If I bail you out now, what lesson is there? What changes? His eyes welled up. So that's it? You're done being my father. That cut deep. Not because it was true, but because he didn't understand. I'll never stop being your father, I said. But I'm done being your banker. There was silence. He didn't get angry. He just sat there for a while, like a man who realized he was finally alone in the mess he created. Eventually he stood up. I guess I deserve this, he said. You don't deserve to suffer, son, I said quietly. But you do deserve to grow. He didn't respond. Just turned, walked down the porch steps, got into his beat-up car, and drove off. I don't know where he went after that. But I knew, truly knew, that I had made the right choice. Sometimes love means saying no. Sometimes love means letting someone fall so they can learn how to stand up on their own. After Jeremy left that day, I felt a mix of emotions, sadness, relief, even a little guilt. But most of all, I felt peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't living to please someone else's expectations. I was living for me, and for something bigger. With the estate now dedicated to causes I truly cared about, I got to witness something beautiful. The Veterans Shelter, for example, was able to expand and open a new wing, offering shelter and counseling to dozens more men and women who had served our country. Every time I got a newsletter or a thank you letter, I felt like a small part of something meaningful. The scholarship fund gave out more grants than ever before. I even met some of the students, bright, ambitious kids from working-class families, who told me their lives were changed forever because of that money. One young woman said she was the first in her family to ever go to college, and she wanted to be a teacher to help kids like her. Those moments reminded me that money isn't just about wealth. It's about impact. It's about legacy. Meanwhile, I kept living simply but joyfully. I traveled to a few new countries on my cruises, tried new hobbies like painting, and spent more time with old friends. Life was richer than ever. And as for Jeremy, our relationship stayed strained. He never really reached out again, at least not to mend things. But I accepted that too. Sometimes people have to walk their own paths, even if those paths lead them away from you. But here's the thing. I don't regret my decision for a second. I've learned that loving yourself and standing up for your values doesn't mean you stop loving others. It means you don't lose yourself in the process. I gave away $3 million. I left Jeremy out of my will. And I gained something far more valuable than money. Dignity, peace, and the freedom to live life on my own terms. If I could say one thing to my son now, it would be this: money can't buy respect. And respect, once lost, isn't always easy to get back. Looking back, I realize my story isn't just about money or family drama. It's about respect, boundaries, and the courage to make tough decisions, even when they hurt. When Jeremy told me to stop wasting money on myself, he wasn't just criticizing my spending. He was expressing something deeper, a sense of entitlement, impatience, and a misunderstanding of what it means to live a full life. I get it. He's from a different generation, with different struggles. But I had to stand firm. You see, no matter how much money you have, if you don't have respect, from others or from yourself, it won't bring happiness. It won't build trust. And it certainly won't buy love. I hope my story encourages you to think about your own boundaries. To ask yourself, are you living for others' expectations? Are you sacrificing your own happiness to please someone who might not appreciate it? And most importantly, do you value yourself enough to say no? Sometimes the hardest love is tough love. It means holding people accountable. It means walking away from toxic patterns, even when they involve family. I'm not proud of how my relationship with Jeremy ended, but I'm proud of how I stood up for myself. And I'm proud of the legacy I left behind. One that will help people who truly need it, not just the people who think they deserve it. If you take one thing away from this story, let it be this: respect is earned. Money can't buy it. And sometimes the best way to teach that lesson is by example. Thank you for listening.